Most Canadians think tropical water means leaving the country, but some of the clearest turquoise water on the continent is hiding in Canada. Every year, thousands spend thousands chasing Caribbean beaches, when 6 destinations right here offer the same vivid blues for a fraction of the cost. We're counting down 6 places, from remote islands and glowing freshwater lagoons to beaches that look unreal on camera, where the water rivals anything in the tropics, but the crowds are almost non-existent. Starting at number 6, with an island you can only reach by boat. First up, the question of why these hidden blue water escapes matter goes deeper than wanderlust. Every summer, Canadians pour billions into flights and resorts abroad, chasing postcard beaches that seem out of reach at home. But the reality is that some of the most dazzling turquoise water on the continent lies tucked away within Canadian borders, often at a fraction of the cost and carbon footprint. Choosing local isn't just about saving money, it's about discovering a side of Canada most people never imagine exists. The economic impact of keeping travel dollars at home ripples out to small towns, Indigenous businesses, and conservation efforts that depend on responsible tourism. At the same time, the environmental cost of long-haul flights and crowded destinations is hard to ignore. These overlooked places offer a rare combination: world-class scenery, a lighter ecological footprint, and the chance to support communities that have protected these landscapes for generations. The real surprise is just how close the Caribbean feeling can be, if you know where to look. Next, a veteran Parks Canada ranger with 12 years on the job offers a perspective shaped by daily encounters with Flowerpot Island's turquoise shorelines. Most people are shocked when they step off the boat, she says. They expect cold, dark water, but what they see is clear blue that could be the Bahamas on a quiet day. Her team keeps visitor numbers low by limiting dock access and enforcing a strict pack-in, pack-out rule. That means every piece of litter, every footprint, is tracked and minimized. She points out that the island's fragile shoreline can't handle the crowds you find at big-name beaches, so the park's approach is simple: fewer people, less impact, more to preserve for the next visitor. What stands out in her account is the pride in balancing access with stewardship. We want people to experience this place, but only if they're willing to treat it with respect. That's the only way to keep the water this clear. Her words underline why these Caribbean-like escapes remain so pristine, and why the experience feels so different from the packed resorts of the tropics. Also worth considering, Osoyoos Lake in British Columbia delivers a Caribbean palette most people never expect to find in Canada's desert interior. For local winemakers, the scene is more than just a photo opportunity. The Osoyoos Indian Band's vineyards sit just above the shoreline, where rows of grapevines overlook water so vividly turquoise it could be mistaken for the Bahamas. The lake's color isn't a trick of the light or a marketing spin. It's the result of a unique mineral mix and the semi-arid climate that keeps sediment low and clarity high. Winemakers here often talk about how the same sunlight that ripens their grapes transforms the lake into a sheet of blue-green glass by midday. The connection between land and water runs deep. Tourism and viticulture thrive side by side, each drawing on the lake's natural spectacle. Yet despite the postcard looks, Osoyoos stays off the mainstream travel radar. The town's quiet, almost understated atmosphere means that even at the height of summer, you're more likely to hear the sound of irrigation sprinklers than a crowd of beachgoers. For the winemaking families, that balance is part of the appeal. The lake's visual magic isn't just a backdrop for business. It's a source of pride and a reminder that world-class beauty can exist in places most travelers overlook. As the shoreline curves away from the vineyards, the crowds thin out even further, setting the stage for hidden bays and tranquil stretches of sand that feel a world apart from Canada's better-known lakes. Also worth considering, the Îles de la Madeleine offer a calm that's hard to find on any Caribbean island, especially when the summer ferry pulls away, and you're left with only the sound of waves against the sand. For one lifeguard who spent a quarter-century watching over a tucked-away cove here, the islands are defined by their quiet. Days pass with barely a ripple of commotion, no blaring resort music, no lines for paddle boards, just the steady rhythm of French conversation drifting from a nearby picnic. The lifeguard describes the water as impossibly blue on a clear day, almost glowing, a color that comes from sunlight bouncing off the shallow sandy bottom and the constant flush of clean Atlantic tides. It's the kind of blue that makes you question if you're still in Canada at all. The cove itself is sheltered by red sandstone cliffs, their color deepening in the late afternoon sun, and the beach stretches out in a crescent of white sand. Even at the height of July, the crowd rarely grows beyond a handful of families. Most visitors arrive by ferry or small plane, a built-in filter that keeps the island's pace unhurried and the beaches nearly empty. The local lifeguard credits the island's French-speaking culture for shaping the atmosphere. Here, the flow of conversation is gentle, and the focus stays on the simple pleasures of swimming, sunbathing, and sharing a seaside meal. The result is a tropical look with a distinctly Quebecois soul, a place where the Caribbean illusion is real, but the experience is quietly, unmistakably Canadian. Also worth considering, the fishing docks of Îles de la Madeleine tell stories that rarely make the guidebooks. Local fishermen start their mornings before sunrise, hauling in lobster traps as the tide pulls clear Atlantic water through the shallow bays. Old-timers talk about how a summer thunderstorm can sweep across the archipelago in minutes, churning the sea into a gray froth, only for the sun to return just as quickly. When the clouds break, the transformation is immediate. Water that looked dull and flat turns a shade of blue so bright it almost glows, reflecting the streaks of red sandstone cliffs along the horizon. It's a phenomenon the islanders take pride in, a kind of natural magic that never fails to impress even those who've spent decades at sea. They'll tell you that the clarity isn't just luck. It comes from the constant motion of the tides, the sandy seabed, and the absence of river runoff that would otherwise cloud the water. For many, the sight of their own village mirrored in turquoise is a reminder of why they stay. Despite the long winters and the effort it takes to reach the islands, the rhythm of fishing here is tied to the sea's moods, and every sudden clearing after a storm feels like a reward for patience. It's this daily relationship with the elements that keeps the islands off the mainstream tourist trail. The journey isn't easy, and the pace is slow. But for those who make it, the payoff is a Caribbean palette set against a backdrop of Acadian French culture and unhurried coastal life. In a world where most travelers chase sun and sand overseas, the fishermen of Îles de la Madeleine quietly celebrate a homegrown paradise that's as vivid as anything you'll find in the tropics, if you know to look for it right after the rain. Standing at the edge of one of Banff's famed turquoise lakes, a park educator with 10 years of experience gestures to the water, her voice carrying the authority of someone who spent thousands of hours watching the seasons change across these glacial valleys. She begins by unraveling the science behind the color that draws so many to these shores. The water's surreal blue-green hue, she explains, isn't the result of digital filters or artificial dyes. Instead, it's a natural phenomenon shaped by the interplay of sunlight and the unique mineral makeup of the Rockies. Glacial rock flour, ultra-fine particles of quartzite and limestone, ground down by the slow movement of ancient ice, remain suspended in the water, never settling, even as the months pass. Each particle, she says, acts like a microscopic mirror, scattering sunlight in every direction. This scattering effect is what gives the lakes their signature glow, a radiance that seems to pulse from beneath the surface, especially on clear summer days when the sun is high and the sky is a deep, uninterrupted blue. She points out that the clarity of these lakes is just as remarkable as their color. Unlike most bodies of water, there's almost no organic matter here. Few leaves, little algae, and barely any sediment runoff from the surrounding slopes. The bedrock, largely composed of hard quartzite, releases almost no dissolved minerals, so the water remains astonishingly pure. The result, she says, is a kind of transparency that feels almost otherworldly. It's like looking through liquid glass with a hint of glacier for good measure. Over the course of the summer, the color of the water shifts. Early in the season, the lakes appear a deep, almost sapphire blue, reflecting the lingering snow on the peaks. As the glaciers melt and more rock flour is carried down by the streams, the color brightens, transforming into a striking, milky turquoise that seems to defy belief. The guide notes that this transformation is a living record of the ongoing relationship between ice, rock, and sun, a process that has shaped the landscape for thousands of years. She often encounters visitors who are convinced the color must be artificial, or who believe such clarity and vibrancy can only be found in tropical destinations. Yet, she insists, the real marvel is that these lakes are the product of Canada's own geological story. Their beauty is a testament to the slow, patient work of glaciers, the purity of the surrounding wilderness, and the physics of light itself. In her eyes, each lake is a window into the planet's past, a reminder that some of the world's most breathtaking sights are hidden in plain sight, shaped by forces far older than any camera or postcard. The story of Killarney Provincial Park is incomplete without the perspective of those who have shaped its trails and protected its quiet corners. One volunteer, whose hands have cleared countless branches from the ridgelines above George Lake, offers a memory that lingers long after the facts and figures fade. Her days usually begin before sunrise, boots crunching over roots and moss, the air sharp with the scent of pine. She's seen the park in all its moods: fog curling over the water, sudden storms flattening the undergrowth, the hush that settles after a fresh snowfall. Yet for all the hours spent maintaining the paths, it was a single afternoon on the water that changed her understanding of the place. She remembers the moment with clarity: a late August day, heat shimmering above the rocks, the lake's surface glassy and still. Setting out alone in a battered canoe, she followed the shoreline, tracing the familiar inlets and bays. The park was quiet, the usual hum of summer campers replaced by the distant echo of a woodpecker. As she rounded a narrow point, the landscape seemed to open up. Before her stretched a cove where the water glowed with an intensity she'd never seen, an electric blue-green that defied every expectation of Northern Ontario. The clarity was startling. She could see straight to the bottom, where sunbeams flickered over smooth stones and drifting weeds. Every paddle stroke sent ripples across the surface, fracturing the light into shifting patterns. She describes a sense of disbelief, a moment suspended between what she thought she knew and what was unfolding in front of her. The water, so often imagined as cold and opaque, revealed itself as luminous and inviting. She drifted, letting the canoe glide without effort, the silence broken only by the distant call of a loon and the soft splash of a mink slipping from the rocks. The shoreline was empty, the world reduced to color, sound, and the slow rhythm of her breath. It felt, she says, like stumbling into a secret, one not captured by postcards or filtered photos. No image had prepared her for the way the sun lit up the cove, or the feeling of being utterly alone in a place that seemed untouched. She's watched others experience the same shock. Families arriving with expectations shaped by stories of rugged wilderness, only to stop short at the water's edge, caught off guard by the clarity and color. For many, the park's reputation is built on granite cliffs and windswept pines, but it's the hidden coves, the places that don't make the guidebooks, that linger in memory. She believes these moments of surprise are what keep people coming back, searching for something just out of sight. Her story is a quiet argument for paying attention, for resisting the urge to look elsewhere for wonder. She hopes more people will pause before booking a flight to distant beaches and consider what waits around the next bend in their own backyard. In her words, you don't have to cross an ocean to find a place that feels like paradise. Sometimes you just need to trust the water, follow the shoreline, and let yourself be surprised. Her memory stands as a gentle reminder. The extraordinary often hides in the familiar, waiting for someone willing to look a little closer and care enough to protect it. And finally, the real secret isn't just that these places exist, it's that they're hiding in plain sight, waiting for anyone willing to swap a boarding pass for a road map. The turquoise water, the quiet coves, the sense of discovery. None of it requires a passport or a plane ticket. Just a different way of looking at the country you thought you knew. Canada's so-called Caribbean corners remind us that wonder isn't always far away or out of reach. Sometimes, the best-kept secrets are the ones closest to home. The next time you picture paradise, it might just be a little further north than you imagined.
Across all 6 destinations, one pattern stands out. Canada's geology creates tropical illusions in places most travelers overlook. Vivid blue water and white sand aren't imported. They're hidden behind remote peninsulas, unique minerals, or simply a lack of hype. These places prove that what we seek abroad sometimes exists quietly at home, challenging us to see Canadian landscapes with new eyes. So, which spot surprised you most? Share your thoughts below.